drive 20 minutes this way, but down into the woods around winding roads and stuff. And then, but Ruth Gladys was down in the tobacco country, and Ruth was up in. It wasn't tobacco country. They actually hustle called hustling pulpwood. Pulpwood was wood they cut the tree down and make paper and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So that was a big part of what they did up in that community. Because all the communities always had to be, and whoever didn't do that usually worked down at the factories in Alcatraz. That's where Kim lived in town, which is only like going to Leesburg from here.
Yeah.
Went like a mile, right? But a big difference in the townies thinking they somebody, talking about the black folks, and they're thinking they somebody, and the country folk who lived up in the woods. You been up the roof?
Yeah, it was in the woods.
Yeah, I loved it though. I loved it.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I think kids would love that.
Huh?
I said the kids would love that.
Oh man, they talking about running around.
I know.
Do anything. We go all day and just hang out in the woods and hang out in up and down the little road. And I always killed myself several times because I built all these little things and try to even did, and I didn't have any real tools, so I had to put them together somehow. Get some old beat up nails, straighten them out, and make me a skateboard. You loved it too. Come down the road and skin my whole. I remember one time I skinned both of my arms. I mean, all the way to the white meat.
You got white in there? I knew you had white in there. That's why Kayla's so light. Because you got some white in there.
Look, we Africans. What y'all talking about? My baby. Give me a kiss.
So then, and you were with Ruth for how long? Until you were how old?
Until I graduated, just like Tay.
Yeah, 18, and then you went
off to college.
In California, or no?
No.
William and Mary.
In California.
He went to college.
What took you to California? I thought it was like track.
Training.
No,
but that wasn't college.
Yeah, it was after college.
After
I graduated, I decided while I was in college that I wanted to do decathlon. If you want to do decathlon, you need to train all year round. So I asked my coach, I was like, okay, if you want to do, where do you go? What do you do? He said, well, you need to train all year round, so you got two options. You can either find somebody with a big facility, which meant the only one I knew then, what he knew, was to join up with Annapolis Naval Academy or something. And because he was going to coach there, and he wanted me to go with him. And just like I said, but at that time I was set against being a military anything. One of my things was I didn't want nobody telling me what to do. So I didn't want to join. I didn't want to do that. So I went out to California. He knew a guy out in California. Knew of a guy. I don't know if he knew him personally, but he knew
I don't want to feel.
Naval Academy.
But then California came up.
Well, he knew I said I still want to train for decathlon. What do I do? Where do I go? He said, well, I know somebody out in California. Out there, the weather's pretty good all the time, so you can train year round. So that's what I set my plans to do once I graduate. Bought me a van, piled it up with everything I had, headed to California. And the van broke down right outside Tennessee. So I had to come back home and hang out with Ruth for another couple of weeks while the guy put a new engine in my van. Caught the bus back down there and headed out to California.
And then broke down at Idaho.
Huh?
Didn't break down.
It didn't break down in South.
Break down. You had a brand new engine in it. Made it all the way to California.
So you were what, 22 or
whatever college? I was come out of college. About that age, somewhere around there. Ended 18. 19, 21, 22. I was a graduated in May. Tried to. It took a while. I mean, I had babies at 25, so. But problem with that was I kept getting hurt, and I had no medical and stuff like that. So whenever I got hurt, even though we had access to a doctor, if you had to go any further than him just putting a Band-Aid on something, you couldn't afford it. So I kept getting hurt, and but I trained with Sam Adams out at UCSB, at University of California, Santa Barbara. It was fun days, though. That was fun days. I like the training. Well, but every time I get to a place, boom, something happened. So it wasn't in God's plan for me to do that. And I met Joanne, got married, and the rest you know. They didn't really have that touchy-feely feeling about the kids. I was basically a little farm hand, is what I was. My job was to do the work. I'm talking whenever I got there, when I first got there, they had me scrubbing floors. They put you down on there, on the floor, and give you a pan of water and say, bring this out and do this. So that's all they did. So I was working from that day. I was a little farm boy.
Whoa.
I said it's a house boy, I should say. Even from an early age. But then again, I wonder why I can do so many things now. Hey, God said He'll turn all of it into blessing.
No. Would you see your mom and siblings much growing up?
No. Not a whole lot, unless I make the effort, and that's what actually created the downfall between myself and the Patrick family, who first house I was in. And because once I got to the age and I knew my family was out there, my brother was down the road, sisters up the road, I said, I'm going. So I walked. Go to see him. And then when I realized my biological mother and father were in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is about 20 miles away. In those days you could catch the bus. But see, they would take us into town to shop. So Gladys is a little tobacco community, right? And quintessential small town, you go shopping like twice a month in town. So we put everybody in the car, and they used to take me. At that time, I'd gotten older. I left that place when I was about 11, whatever 7th grade is. So 11, 12, something like that.
12 or 13.
Huh?
12 or 13.
I wasn't 13. I was only about 11 because I was in 7th grade.
Oh.
So what is 7th grade?
12 or 13. So you'd probably be 12.
No, I wasn't 12.
I'm in 6th grade. I'm 11.
Yeah, but I was less than 12.
Did you? Oh.
Because I remember turning 12 when I was at Ruth's house. But look, they didn't love me in that house, and I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I could go deeper into it, but where the kid has feelings, sometimes when you remember things, it's based on the feeling that it gave you, and so you remember these things. But I have a vivid memory of being at Ethel Patrick's house because I wanted her to show me some affection that she showed the rest of the kids. There was something about a boy she didn't like. The rest of the people were girls.
But she had other foster kids.
Oh, yeah, a bunch of, country. Imagine, and I'm sure it happened in white race too, but if somebody had, let's say, in your family somewhere had a kid, somebody said, well, certain can't take care of that kid. Well, bring her over here. Bring her over here. We'll keep her. So they just brought him to your house and left him. You took care of the kid. So she had a couple of kids like that, some welfare kids. We called them welfare kids in those days, which ended up being a derogatory term. You're just a welfare kid. So she had a bunch of, at one point there were about 8 in that house. A bunch of girls, boys, all little kids, like y'all. It's like your family now. That's where it was. A bunch of, but some older kids too, and everybody was taking care of the house. You had jobs to do. But, you know, when I found out that I had folks in Lynchburg, and they took me to town, that's why I started this part of the story. They took me to town. What they would do is, I was old enough, I guess, to go into town, and okay, they park in the Piggly Wiggly parking lot. Yeah, they had Piggly Wigglies back then. You know, there was a grocery store, right? Okay. Park in the Piggly Wiggly shopping lot. But it wasn't like the Piggly Wiggly in those days was like they had TV sets, they had radios, they had all kinds of stuff you could buy. You know? So they parked there, and then you could walk up and down the town. They say you got to be back in an hour, whatever an hour was. I don't even know how I knew it was an hour. But you got to be back in an hour. We leaving. They meant it. Then again, they didn't know that And one day we were at Piggly Wiggly, and I was walking up and down this, but I left Piggly Wiggly, walked up one street. I wasn't there. You got the stores. I used to go in and out of the stores. Close your ears for a minute. Stealing stuff. Because I ain't had no money. So I'd go up and down the store stealing stuff. And all of a sudden, there was my sister, Janice. I hadn't seen her in years.
Wow.
And she, you know, if you know Janice, she's like Tiffany, overreactor. You know, Alfonso, hugging over, kissing over, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to take you over to Mom's house. So we walk across Rivermont Bridge, which is, you know, okay, here's the stores. And you come to the end of the street, cross over a little, and then there's a bridge that led into where the black folks live. Mom lived over there. I mean, that close, and I didn't even know it.
Wow.
So
you were 11 at this point.
No, I was about 10.
Okay.
Something like that.
But you hadn't seen your sister since you were 3, or?
Well, no, you like I said, they were houses. They were 2 miles down the road, 2 miles down the road, blah blah blah. And I'd see them occasionally. Well, we went to the same school. We all went to the same elementary school. But, you know, I still didn't see them much. I saw them in the school. That was about it.
Yeah.
And so, but they eventually had a choice when they got older to leave. They gave them a choice to leave and go back to live with Mom. Mom had a house. Dad provided for her. But remember, he was a gambler, so sometimes he had money, sometimes he still was a gambler.
That's how my dad's dad was.
Yeah.
Gambler.
Yeah. And what was it?
Yeah. That's why my dad grew up real poor, because his dad was a gambler. Yeah.
So went on to Mom's house, and I just was in heaven.
Wow.
I didn't focus on the fact that how they were living. They lived in the ghetto, really. And it was just my family. It's like you just felt something different. And Janice, you know, and Trisha, and Ronnie, and Alvin. Alvin, I didn't even know I had a little brother until that day.
Wow.
Didn't even know. This is my little brother, Alvin. Alvin, 5 years.
So this is the day at the grocery store, and you just went over there. So the
over the bridge.
family
crossing over the bridge.
Family left after an hour, and you
They were gone.
Yeah.
And I was reported as runaway.
Oh wow.
Look, but the folks, I mean, we call them welfare people. The welfare people knew my folks lived. They knew where my folks were. But they never had taken the time to carry me over to meet them.
Right, wow.
But they were all afraid of that same thing, see. But when I met them, I just stayed there. Yeah, I just stayed there. But they eventually came and picked me up and took me back. But then I learned after that if I wanted to go visit them, they negotiated with the people and said, okay, he knows they're over there now. You may as well let him go visit them, or he'll start running away. And I was trying to figure out how to walk up how to get to Lynchburg by walking. I took off one time, walking, But Lynchburg is 20 miles away, so you know, your conceptually, like now they just right up there. They right up the road. If I keep walking that way, I get there. So I start walking that way and I ain't getting nowhere. So eventually I had to come back home. But when I had a chance to make up my mind to go back and live with Lynchburg, because one of the things that happened once I started to go visit them, I could take the bus. And just get on the bus and go and travel to visit them. By that time, because once I started doing that, the old man had already passed away, Dave Patrick, and the lady didn't like me in the first place. She never did, Ethel Patrick. So it was just a matter of, but you couldn't just say, well, I don't want this kid no more, because then they started evaluating you as to, well, you know, and for them it was money. We were like cattle. As far as I'm concerned, we like cattle. They give you a certain amount a month to take care of that child, supposedly to take care of the child. Now you take the money in and see, that was the thing about Ruth Brown. When I first went to Ruth Brown's house, they packed my clothes from Ethel Patrick's house, and I remember they had 2 big old boxes. To me, the boxes were huge because I was little, like a little younger than you. Boxes were huge, but they just threw all my clothes in there and just sent them along. The lady stuck them in the back of the car, and what Ruth Brown did, and they dropped those boxes off. These are my clothes, my school clothes, my supposedly church clothes. She took one look at them, and we had a burn pile where they burn trash. You know, little country folks always got a burn pile. And she took all those clothes, sit the boxes out there, set them on fire. And I was mad as a hornet. You burned up my clothes. She said, "Well, nothing in there worth your word." She wrote about me all this stuff. First time anybody ever showed me any kind of compassion or love or concern. Period. And so I fell in love with Ruth. She was my mom from that point on. Still is. Yeah. God is great.
Amen.
Came from a place where they showed me no concern and always accused me of every single thing that you could name. You know, the way she got me out of the house was she said that I had a gun. And basically, when I went to visit my folks, I used to search through the drawers and everything and stuff, and nobody was wearing it. I found a bullet that my dad had in one of the drawers. I just kept the bullet. I thought it was real cool. I just kept the bullet. So I went back home. I guess the bullet was in my pocket or something. And she found it and said, she called the folks and said I had a gun. So they came down investigating, blah, 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 blah. And I told them, the only gun I got is a little cap gun right here. But no, he got a gun. He hid it somewhere. But she was doing that. I realized later she was doing that trying to get me out of the house. She didn't want me no more, but she wanted those people to take me out so that she would be, it had to be my fault. But you can't say that, well, I just don't want this kid, can't handle him, or blah, 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 I just don't like him. You can't say that. So yeah, so he got me out. But you know, it's all God's blessing too, because Ruth Brown showed me how to care for myself. See, I told you I was a thief. I was a great thief. I could go into a store, and I realized I was a smart thief at a young age. Because I realized those people were watching me every time I went in the store. and I had all kinds of little tricks. I could steal something while you were looking at me. I really could. I could, yeah, man, we were little things. We ended up some bigger things, but most of the toys I liked, or comic books. I used to love comic books. I just sit down for hours and read comic books. I used to steal comic books and everything. But the thing that changed me, one day I got caught when I was with Ruth, early on with Ruth. And the man had threatened to tell her. He threatened to put me in jail and tell her, blah, blah, you know, he'll bring you back in the back room and, blah, 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 I won't tell your mama, I'm tell you, blah, blah. You get her to come down here Monday, because I'm going to arrest you, I'm going to put, like, scared me to death, only because. Only because I didn't want to hurt her. I didn't, I didn't care about the rest of them, but I didn't want her to know I was a thief, man. Cause she cared a lot about me, and so from that day on, I swore to God, if you get me out of this one, I did. I swore to God. I prayed that night. I said, Lord, if you get me out of this one, I'll never steal another thing a day in my life, and I didn't.
Wow.
So, never again. But, basically my mom had to take care of him. But at one point, now I got this from my sisters who remember more than I do. At one point my dad tried to get mad at my mom, wanted to take all the kids away. And so my mom called the welfare people and said, he's doing this and doing that and doing all kinds of stuff, drinks and blah, 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 gets mad. And probably about 3. Like that, 2.5, 3. But I remember they stuck us on the car and took us off. Put us in different places.
Wow. Yeah.
Split
up far? Or were you guys all in the same area?
Actually, we were in the same town. I think they would call it Gladys a town. It was a little farming community, really. And they put me in one house. Ronnie was probably about, my oldest brother was probably about 2 miles away down the road. You started down the road, you walked down the road. And then about 3 miles down the road was 2 of my sisters, and about 3 miles up the road, 2 of my other sisters. So we grew up in the same community. But we didn't have a whole lot of association with each other.